Sorry, folks, park's closed.
This actually could be coming to a park near you soon. And I'm going to tell y'all something. I can't even believe it. I'm having to have this conversation. I thought we were the land of the free. There is an issue going on right now in the state of Alabama that could also affect any private park in the country in time. And I'll explain how in this video. So in the state of Alabama, one of our great state senators has proposed a new bill called SB 254. Now, SB 254 targets specifically ATV parks that are privately owned, not county-owned parks. We do have a couple of parks that are owned by municipalities or counties, but this bill is targeted straight, solely, and only to private off-road parks in the state of Alabama. Now, at first glance, this proposal seems innocent, but if you dig a little deeper in it, you realize real quick the purpose of this bill is to close down all private parks. One of the things that this requires is that any private park in the state of Alabama has to go to the county that it's in and get a permit to operate that off-road park. Now, the permit's only $50. Seems stupid, no big deal. Requirements that each park has to meet in order to get this $50 permit. And there's two main things in here that makes this completely unobtainable. And here's the first one, and this is a whopper. You got to provide proof of at least $5 million of liability insurance coverage. But it's extremely expensive. The only place that's going to give that type of insurance policy is going to be Lloyd's of London, and it's going to be in the $500,000 to $600,000 per year range to be able to get that kind of liability insurance. That's not all. That insurance policy also must indemnify the county commission, the neighboring property owners for damage to their property, and downstream property owners for damage to their water access. So basically what that's saying is that every private park will have to have $5 million in liability insurance. One, to cover their own park. Two, to cover any damages that the county may incur, any damages that any adjoining property owners would occur. The other thing is the downstream property owners for damage to their water access. So this is my interpretation of this. So if it rains and dirt, mud, water, it all gets into the creek and runs downstream, and the neighbor's creek is now muddy for a day until it clears up, they could request compensation for damages to their water. They could. And the big kicker of that is no one, zero. There is not an insurance company on the planet that will insure your property, the county commission, the neighboring property, and downstream property owners. So this would immediately shut down all off-road parks privately owned in the state of Alabama. Now, I do want to point out that, especially the UTV industry, it's fairly new, 15 to 20 years old. And I've been in the off-road industry my entire life in some form or fashion. And in the state of Alabama, up until, the 2010s, I guess I'm going to say around 2010, we didn't have off-road parks. They just weren't there. So what we did is basically trespass on trail systems. I mean, even when I was a kid in the 80s, we had trail systems here by me that were, either coal mining companies or forestry companies, paper companies, things like that weren't present on the property, and we all rode it. And and then we started having some, I'll call it government-owned parks open up. And then the private sector started getting it. People that had family land, large tracts of land, started opening those up for off-road parks. And it's been great. It's helped this industry expand. And you guys that have been, riding for a long time, y'all remember places like Mount Olive, Brookwood, things like that were, either forestry companies or mining companies that we rode on. And it wasn't a problem back then, and now it is now. So we have off-road parks to go to, spend our money, and recreate. The off-road industry has been amazing. I mean, obviously, it's how I've made my living in some form or fashion in my adulthood. But not just that, I've made a lot of friends. Traveling, and I travel all over the country. But man, it's a nice thing to do, to load up in your Jeep, your side by side, your ATV, whatever it is, and go out and recreate, off road, and camp with like-minded people, and you make a lot of new friends. Some of them are lifelong friends. I know some of you guys that I've watched through social media that didn't know each other 10 years ago are now best friends because of off-roading. And the other side of it is, especially during COVID, where a lot of people weren't allowed to do anything, off-roading and camping was about the only way to get away. So again, basically what this bill being proposed in the Alabama Senate is going to do is force landowners that have off-road parks to shut those down, because they simply can't self-sustain. They can't pay these high rates of insurance. But that's not the only thing that's in this bill. So in order to obtain this permit from the county, you have to meet these certain criteria. You have to provide it to the county. But one of the things that they require is that any person operating an ATV park shall follow the best management practice established by the Alabama Forestry Commission as they pertain to forested watersheds. That was really pertaining to paper companies, forestry companies that grow timber to solely come in and cut it down for paper products and replant. And in that, I want to point one big thing out, and this really affects you guys in Alabama. Do not remove trees from banks, beds, or steep slopes. So you guys that like to hill climb, you know what those are? They're steep slopes. So just to let you know, throwing that in there, and is saying that if this private property owner wants to open an ATV park, he can't clear steep slopes off of his own property from the timber for you to ride your side-by-side, Jeep, ATV, whatever it is you want to do. So I'm just pointing out some of the things that are in here worded, and I'm going to say skillfully crafted to prevent us as off-roaders to do what we love to do. So I've never seen anything written up this in the country that is so strict. I know on the West Coast, and you guys on the East Coast may not go west. The majority of the riding out west is public land. It's BLM. It's your land, and it has its own rules and regulations. But on the East Coast, for you West Coast guys, we don't have BLM land here. Everywhere that we ride is private land. So how does this affect you as a Tennessean or a Kentuckian or Ohio or Indiana? I'm going to tell you something. How this whole thing started was basically 5 or 6 people off of one park in Alabama that doesn't want the park there. And they started complaining. And they started complaining until a local politician listened. And then that local politician talked to a state politician. And that's where this legislation came from. So if you think they passed this in Alabama and it could never come to Tennessee, Windrock, Brimstone, all of that, you're wrong, because all it's going to take is those few, just those handful that scream the loudest to start bitching to their politicians, and they're going to turn around and look at, well, this is what Alabama did to fix it. Let's do that. Typically, government oversight comes in when there's a problem. And there's no problem here. We don't have a problem with our private off-road parks. But this is what's happening. And this is what I need you guys to do. First off, sharing is caring, brother. Please share this so more people will see it, because I know if you're seeing this, you're more than likely one of my friends in the off-road industry. And if you share it, your friends in the off-road industry and their friends in the off-road industry, that we really need to get this word out nationwide. I need everybody's help on this. It's no different than what Utah has been going through with Moab, them trying to get trail systems shut down in Moab. Every single thing that you can do to help as a fellow off-roader, you should do. So here's what I'm asking. In this, I'm going to drop a link. Don't know if it's here or here, whatever, in the description. I'm going to drop a link, one of SB 254, so you can read it yourself. You can go over it all you want for your viewing pleasure. But the other thing I'm going to do is drop a link to every state senator and representative. If you're an Alabama resident, each one of these has a phone number. It's not their personal cell phone, and it's not their home phone number. It's their representative, business phone number. If you're a resident of Alabama, pick up the phone and call. Leave a message and let them know that you don't support SB 254. If you're not a resident of Alabama, just like we did for you guys in Utah, all over the country, same thing. In that link, there's also email addresses for senators and representatives. Shoot them an email. Takes you 5 minutes out of your day. I'm actually going to get, Michael Lockridge had a really good, like a block form email. I'm going to put that in here as well too in the comments so you guys can copy and paste. Help us out. Email our representatives. Let them know that you don't think that Alabama parks, Alabama ATV and off-road parks should be restricted with this ridiculous liability and these ridiculous demands that they're putting on them. Let them know you're not in support. As a non-Alabama resident, as someone that may be from Tennessee that likes to come down to Alabama, or somebody in Missouri that wants to travel to Alabama to one of our parks, or maybe even one of my brothers in Utah. I know I love coming out there and ride with y'all. Maybe one day y'all want to come out here. Y'all shoot emails. Just let them know. So this Alabama senator's name is Andrew Jones. Emailing him and calling him is probably just a waste of your typing fingers, because he's the one that proposed the bill, and you're not going to change his mind, because I won't go deep into it, but a lot of this going on with him is kind of family related with this park. And I know a little bit of the background ins and outs. Won't go into that here. It's not my place to talk about the Hatfield and McCoy of Alabama feud going on in Northeast Alabama. But email these guys, let them know, fill their emails up. If you want to use the little form email that I'm putting in the comments, do that, or click the link. I'm going to put a link on RageLife.com, kind of breaking this all down. You can do that. But yeah, help support the off-road community, because it's now come to our back door, and it may be coming to yours one day, and you want us to help you. So thanks, guys. I appreciate y'all watching. I know this was a longer video than I intended it to be, but hey, as an off-road community, let's stick together and make things happen.